Welcome to Life Campus, and thank you very much for joining me today. Here at Life Campus, as you know, our one and only goal is to empower your future. We want to give you information, advice, guidance, and all the tools and resources that you need to make those life changing, informed decisions regarding your education, career, lifestyle, health, and finances. And every week we sit down with industry experts to help us to navigate the twists and turns of these industries that we are interested in. We also sit and learn from success stories of people who have traveled the journey before us and have made a success of it. And today we're going to be sitting down with someone who has traveled a very interesting journey, and there's a lot of takeaways from her journey. She is a chartered accountant. However, she has also used her qualification and her experience to open up other opportunities. She used her qualification as a platform to launch herself into other places that, in most cases, we will disqualify ourselves, saying, I'm not qualified to be sitting in those boardrooms. But this lady has opened those doors. So we will hear from her, learn, and hopefully take away something that we can implement in our own journeys. So without wasting any more time, Tendai, welcome to Life Campus.
Thank you very much, Ezra. I am honored to be here. I do not take it lightly that we're having this conversation. So, yeah, excited for what's to come out from this.
Thank you, Tendai. I know you are busy. I see on your LinkedIn you've got so many things going on. You are pretty much everywhere, really. But I think the most important thing is if you could start by introducing yourself and tell us what you do as a profession.
So, my name is Tendai Rukarwa. I was born and raised in Zimbabwe, which is where I started my journey to chartered accountancy whilst working at Ernst & Young in Harare. Then I moved to the UK in adulthood after having completed my chartered accountancy studies. And my current role, because I'm sure we'll talk about the journey in between, my current role, I am the lead auditor at Motor Insurance Bureau. And I also sit on the board for the University of Northampton, serving particularly on the Audit and Risk Committee. A very keen volunteer with a charity called Worktree, where I go into schools and YMCA campuses to talk about employability and career journeys. And I am a mom of 2 boys, 7 and 3.
Nice. Thank you very much for that introduction, Tendai. I'm very intrigued in how someone comes from all the way from Zimbabwe all the way to the United Kingdom, and you're sitting on the board of a big university, and you've got a really hands-on job that you have as a leader in your position as well. So I'll go back to it. But what I normally do is with my guests, I want to go back in time, just to kind of paint a picture of where you actually came from. So let's talk about 13-year-old Tendai. When people are asking you, what do you want to be when you grow up? What was your answer?
I think that changed so many times. I'm not sure my parents even kept up. But I remember at one point mentioning pilot, because we always had these cookie cutter professions that are just named. But I know when I went into high school, I was at a girls' high school called Monte Cassino Girls High. Okay. That is where I did my high school education. I was very interested in science subjects. Okay. In hindsight, when I reflect upon it, I'm not sure whether I was interested or it was something that I was almost conditioned into, because there was a conception that the science students did better. Yeah. So I didn't struggle academically myself. I did well in my academics. So it felt like that is where I should just go. So I actually did 11 subjects at my own level. Okay. Science subjects, one, interestingly, was accounting, because they opened up and said, we've got accounting that if you want to take part in, you can, but we won't have a tutor for you for that. So that was self-study. So I was attending biology classes, chemistry classes, and then doing accounting on the side. I'm sure my parents already could see a doctor in me, but I found the accounting very interesting, that when it came to my higher education, I was like, no, I don't think I'll do the science subjects. Then I'll go into the accounting route. And with that one as well, I have to credit one of my cousins right now. She is working in the accountants field. So she took up chartered accountancy. So I never knew about it before that. So that got me quite interested in like, what is this all about? So I could see how she was excelling, and that propelled me to now have a definition of where do I want to take this accounting side of it. So one of the reasons why I'm very passionate is because had I not seen my cousin do this, I would not know about it.
Okay.
I actually did an application to go to the University of Zimbabwe. I was going to just go there and do my accounting degree. I didn't know what would be after, but because I saw my cousin do this apprenticeship working at Deloitte, I was like, okay. Then she was now helping me to then do my applications until I got to the position I got at Ernst & Young. But yeah, I was a very much a sciences student.
That's
Yes.
interesting, from science to accounting. I guess that it shows the importance of that influence of other people around you. If you got the right influence around you, or if you can people that you can look up to, people who have already done it, which is exactly aligns with what we do here at Life Campus podcast, where we talk to individuals like you who have already traveled the journey, and hopefully you will give information, advice, and guidance to those young adults out there. They're thinking about different areas, different fields that they go into. But the more information they get, the better chances of them making informed decisions about their careers. Because I work in education myself, and I've seen a number of people who will commit to like one area of study. Let's say they go into accounting, then 2 years down the line, they realize that that's not what I want. I've been following someone else's dream. I didn't get enough information, advice, and guidance to start with when I chose this qualification. Then they have to look and start again. So what we're trying to do is to avoid those situations and follow guidance from people who have already traveled the journey. Okay, so you
You've
are in
actually
account.
prompted something for
Yeah.
me. I think particularly for immigrants, that is something that is so not talked about. The people who receive you when you move from one country to the next really have a profound effect on how you progress. So
Yeah.
I'll use myself as an example. So when I moved to the UK, I went into an environment that was predominantly people working in healthcare and social care.
Yeah.
I was an outlier among them. So when I came in here with this whole chartered accountancy certificate, with a dream of going to sit in an office and do audits, I was faced with people who had not seen that view. So when I was there talking about my dreams, sharing with them aspirations, they could not relate. So sometimes when people cannot relate, I really wish people would be able to refer you elsewhere, or you would look elsewhere. But instead, you can find yourself in an environment where people turn you away from what you're doing or discredit it. Because when you're an outlier, you can tend to really question and think, something's not right with me. So you change the dream. So I did come to a point where people were telling me, you're coming in from a third world country per se, and you're not going to necessarily occupy some of these places. So can you find placeholder professions? Can you divert? I am fortunate enough that I did now end up finding some networks of people who understood what I was trying to aim for, who now helped me to grab hold of the dream. But I was just literally 2 seconds away from making applications to just abandon everything. So that environment is very important, even in adulthood, where the places we find ourselves in. And that's why I also advocate for networking. Go out and see different things, see different ways of life. Because some of these things we term our preferences and, taste buds is because you were introduced to a certain way of life. If you walk into a certain country and people tell you this is the shop to shop, you develop some loyalty to that shop because that was the one that was first introduced to you. And yet you could be having preferences for other things. So even as grown-ups, as young people, be very mindful of the spaces you find yourselves in because it can alter the trajectory of your life.
Yeah. And I think you're right, because it's one of those things that if you're in that environment, you're going to be influenced by that environment. And especially if you're moving into a different country, different culture, different way of things, you tend to look up to the person who received you into that country to be the person who's got the wisdom. And so how did you overcome that pressure of not changing because everyone else around you was doing healthcare? What was it about you as an individual that helped you to stop and say, this is what I want and I'm going to pursue it?
So I think there's a high level of self-awareness you also need to have, because oftentimes we do have that nagging feeling of something is not quite right. We just sometimes choose not to honor it. But when you find yourself sometimes constantly feeling a discomfort towards a certain direction, because sometimes it can factually make sense, because they will show you the back statement, the numbers are there, but you know that this is not necessarily my space. So there's that one, honor that intuition. I think I took a little bit of time to really sit with myself because the other voices were a little louder. But like I mentioned as well, make sure you have varied people in your space. You need to make sure yes, you've got a core group you interact with, but do expand your network. So for me, it was mainly a religious group that I was involved in.
Okay.
But when you also maintain friends from other aspects of your life, it helps you to reframe, because group mentality is very strong.
Yeah.
It is really strong. So make sure you connect and have people in different spaces. I sometimes even have high school friends who are just not in the profession. Sometimes I even say, I like friends who are not mothers, because they make me sometimes take a step back and start to question my reality, my norm.
Yeah.
You may still come to the same conclusion, but at least you allow yourself that moment of pushback. Now, as I'm much more older in my career journey, I now actually have mentors in my space who challenge me and who I can also just say, can I just be a sounding board? Sometimes just like, you want to hear yourself aloud, say something. Sometimes your own words can be like, wait, that doesn't make sense. But because you don't take that time to process and see, there are times you experiment and actually hit a roadblock. Like, for example, for me, I always use this example. I arrived here, people heard about the accounting background, and everyone's like, oh, tax. You're going to have to do people's taxes.
Yeah.
I passed taxes as part of my qualification, but it was really I don't know. I was really on the edge. I got a pass mark, but I didn't enjoy it and I didn't feel like I particularly did it well. So, because again, the numbers can make sense, the facts can actually be there. I took this up and it strained my life in so many ways because I was pushing myself to do something I didn't like. And then I even took the exams. I didn't do well. I failed those exams. Like not even a possible board sit down and consider rewrite. No, it was really bad. But it's also those moments where the first inclination is do it again. It's like, but wait, let's really assess. It was not because of lack of effort. The passion in my heart was not there, so it didn't really come forth.
Yeah.
Then you sit and reconsider. So I always say, keep your view broad. Have that intuition. Please normalize speaking to yourself. It's actually not madness, to be fair. To sit with yourself and within your inner self and say, okay, what is this? Why do I want to do it? What is the end point of this? And sometimes, like you mentioned, you can start somewhere and be like, I don't necessarily want to continue doing this. It made sense at this point. Pivot and move to something else. So quickly fail is
Fail quick.
my motto. Fail quickly. Sometimes it might be a process of let's give it a go. But if you do give it a go, take the feedback before you take the next step.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying here is it's important to have people that you talk to, you listen to, but also it's equally important to have that time to reflect, self-reflect on your own. You get all that information, the advice and the guidance, but at the same time, it's still your responsibility as an individual to sit down and process all that information and come to a decision that suits you, that is for you, because this is your life at the end of the day. So you shouldn't be letting people make those decisions for you. Now, I like that kind of thinking, and I can see how that can help you to survive in situations where there's too much pressure from other people. And I know for myself, coming from Zimbabwe, and I can speak maybe for other African countries as well, there is this idea of like, my uncle did this, so I have to do this, or my parents want me to do this career, so I have to do that career. But if you have that passion within you that you want to do something, you have to follow it. Otherwise, you would end up in that situation. Or I say, you do 2 years down the line, you realize that's not what I want. You have to restart again, or you live a miserable life because yes, you are an engineer, but are you enjoying it every day when you go to school? That's the other side of things that we have to consider when we are doing this. Thank you very much, Tendai, for that. I think let's talk about your accountancy career. There are, personally, from what I know, talking to people and hearing people, there are so many misconceptions about the accounting career. And one of them, which is very common, is it's boring. But the reason I stopped and actually looked at your profile is some of the posts that you post on there. I can feel the energy, the passion of what you do and the passion of helping other people. So, are there any other misconceptions? Because from just looking at your profile, I know that accounting people are not boring, because you definitely are not boring just from the profile. So talk to me about other misconceptions, and actually that misconception that accounting is boring. Yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yes. So I live for making sure I debunk that one. That accountants are boring. We are black or white or gray or navy. And I always say sometimes when I introduce myself and people go like, oh, I didn't think, I thought you did something a lot more creative. And I was like, it is still creative, but it's that misconception and with the professional stereotypes. And some people are scared away from it because they'll feel like they'll be caged or boxed into it. But I always try and make sure I channel that to say, this, if you do meet someone, it might be their preference to be like that, but it's not a function of the profession that you need to be stiff and upright. I sometimes can deliver some of the most heartbreaking report news with a smile, like, yes, you have failed this audit, but it's the content of what I'm speaking about does not mean I need to carry all the doom. So one misconception is that one about the color and the boring outlook. So yes, I'm sure, I don't know if you can see me, but yes, I like to incorporate color in my role. And I also feel like it adds an element of personality into that, because people feel like you wear a profession, like a persona, and you embody that profession in one area and then you go and live your life elsewhere. You can have that fluidity of what you enjoy in your personal life and what you enjoy in your career. So for me, I love color. So I incorporate it in my work clothes. Do I still remain appropriate? Because with everything, there's always time and place for everything. You can still do that because we're adults. So there is that judgment that you apply. But I think another myth I often hear is that there's a certain personality type.
Yeah.
So I have met introverts, I have met extroverts, all still within the profession. I myself find myself a mixture of both.
Okay.
So whilst I do like to be out there meeting people and trying out new things, I do take time to retreat to my books. So I've got a lovely book collection. Anyone who comes to my house, I'm always showing off my latest read. Yes. But the other thing is you need to be so good at maths. That one is, there is an element of calculation involved, but not all of us do maths. So I will classify myself as the accountant who doesn't like numbers.
Okay.
Yes, that sounds like a paradox, but there are so many ways in which this profession can take you. So there are some accountants. I used to be myself in the place where I'll sit and actually prepare financial statements. So you are looking at the financial history of the company, compiling all the information up until the point we now say, for this year, this company has done this much profit, and these are the assets that they own. But I actually prefer to work with words. So I ended up taking my accountancy career towards the direction of risk. So I do like the idea where I sit and look at the organization. What could possibly go wrong? How can we prevent it? And or if it does go wrong, how can we stop? And any other measures we can take to protect and cover. So I don't necessarily work with numbers, sorry. I work primarily with words. So that's the other misconception that people hear that I'm a chartered accountant and thinking, oh, you're always adding up. No. Another misconception is because I'm a chartered accountant, I am good with anything to do with numbers and finances. That can be a misconception. I've met a number of accountants who have been afraid to seek help, who are in serious debt, because there is an element of concept when you're doing accounting for organizations. There's certain numbers and concepts we follow. Personal life, there are also still skills we need to learn in our personal finances.
Yeah.
You cannot assume because someone's an accountant, they're able to just calculate how much they need to get for their mortgage and how it will pay off in the next couple of years. So another misconception is because someone's an accountant, they can deal with anything to do with finances in your space. So you also need to check a person's abilities because we do tend to specialize. We don't often find ourselves in a very general space. You do find someone who focuses on taxes, someone who focuses on governance, someone who focuses on risk, and all different types. That's the other misconception where you find someone with the role of accountant and you just plug them in. And then people now badmouth everyone. They're like, no, they're not so highly rated. No, you do have a general baseline knowledge for everyone. And then there's specialisms. And even as an accountant, to admit where something is not your specialty. So you will not find me doing my own taxes.
Okay.
I will actually get help. So I also want to help any young professionals who think because they've got a certain title, they cannot speak up when they need a little buffer. You're not meant to know everything.
Yeah.
It would be worrying if you did. Yes. So when you need extra buffering, whether it's in your profession or with something else that may be related, please do seek help, and it's quite acceptable. So that's one thing I also try and channel in my post to say the stereotypes. It's not just the outward, it's as well as even within the in-depth things of our lives. To be able to just say, no one knows it all, because people present a good picture. So just say, we all don't know it all. Get help, don't sink. You are allowed to get the extra boost for you to be able to succeed. So when that helps you not to carry too much weight on yourself, that depression that comes from, I'm supposed to, no, do what you can, outsource what you can't.
Okay. So that is really good. And the other thing I wanted to check and understand as well is the progression routes within the accounting field. Looking from outside, you think, oh, okay, you qualify as a chartered accountant, and then what? How do you progress? The opportunities for you to keep going higher and higher up the ladder within or up the chain within the organizations.
Yes, there is. That question will be answered differently by so many people, but I feel like the one point that comes to there is self-agency. There comes a point where we have different channels of growth. When we're training, you start off from this position, you're an assistant, you become maybe a senior, supervisor, manager, senior manager. They're very defined ones that normally in the training offices and even in your studies, you move from this level, you write your training assessments, you write your board exams up into qualification. At qualification, I think that's where we find a lot of the distinction. In that there are some people who are quite content to just qualify and stop there. Then there's some who want to add additional. So you find people doing, such fraud investigators. You find others going to do financial analysis. Some become management accounts. So there's an element of self-study that does come in there because I feel it's necessary for the differentiation because there's many of us. Each year, the number of us being spewed out. So others take the route of educational distinction to differentiate themselves. Others do it a lot more in career development. So there's some who leave the accountancy profession and start new things. So they become entrepreneurs and business owners. And then there are those who now also use the soft skills to then advance themselves. I had a lesson by fire coming to the UK.
Yeah.
So I had always had the notion that my hard work will speak for itself and it is what will propel me.
Yeah.
So I moved to the UK and I was working hard on my working papers in the organization. I was grafting, as we would like to put it. But you see other people moving and progressing, and you're wondering, but I'm here. One of the things that gets you to progress is also just being personable, having a demeanor that people can relate to. Because you can sit in your corner with your excellent work. We take the work, we produce the reports, but we don't know who you are. We will not mention your room anywhere. So you also need to learn to be able to, one, speak for yourself. Please have a humble brag. Yes.
Yeah.
That is not vanity. I'm Christian. Yes. But
Yes.
have a humble brag.
Yeah.
You need to advocate for yourself. So sometimes I would find myself at a performance review. My manager would say, how did you think this year went? For some reason, I would just start off with all the things I think I did wrong.
Yeah.
And they are not going to necessarily stop me. And they are going to also be like, yeah, I agree with you that time, Tendai. We really could have pushed it. And they may not even bring out some good things. So what is the outcome of that performance review? Because technically, even if we report what is there, they did not say, and they produced a report based on your words.
Yeah.
Yes. So you find yourself going like, but how come no one noticed this? Self-advocacy. So have a humble brag. Sit down and be like, yeah, that other time, so did mention that if I had not been present in that meeting, we could have derailed. So I'm able to keep things on track. I am able to. So have a humble brag. And make sure you vocalize it, remind people. You also need to inject yourself into more than just your work. What do I mean by that one? We have social days at work. Sometimes volunteer to lead a game or to help coordinate. Sometimes our personalities don't feel like we're really outgoing. Be part of the committee just to say, do you need any help? Let them know you exist. Let people know that you do say something. So join a network. There are networks within organizations, being part of, I don't know, well-being, maybe D&I networks. Be part of something. Sometimes they can even invite you to write articles or people just to do certain presentations. Because I think I spent almost a decade in frustration, I'll be very honest with you, wondering, I do work. I just don't seem to be singing. I don't seem that anyone, until you start also circling around. You also need to learn the culture of the organization and the countries we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
Again, being a Zimbabwean lady, when people would say, we're going to the pub for drinks after work. For me, that screamed a lot of immorality. I don't know where I got this. And I was like, oh no, I can't be. Well, what at the pub? You will get to learn that at the pub, it is a group of people standing around, holding drinks, some coffee, juice. You don't necessarily need to take alcohol if you don't. Yeah. But it's in those moments where we break down the conversations of just beyond the work. People get to know, so, oh, Tendai, so you moved to Zimbabwe. You moved from Zimbabwe. Oh, so this and that. And people get to know such you beyond just the working paper.
Yeah.
And it becomes easier even next time you meet in the office. You can pick up from there and people can actually be like, you know what, there's a young lady I remember I met her on Friday. Then they get to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, and I think that's not just relevant to the accountancy area. It's very relevant to everyone because I know recently there's been a lot of people coming from different countries, coming to the UK, going to Canada, different other countries to work. And you won't know or understand the culture, the everyday life of that country unless you put yourself in it. So it's important, like you pointed out, networking, finding the right networks for you, getting yourself involved, putting yourself forward so that you understand the area that you are now living in and you're working in. You have to understand the people that you're working with as well for them to actually want to work with you. So there's a lot to learn for immigrants. It doesn't matter what field you are in. Networking, communication. You touched on communication as well. The importance of communicating, being able to communicate how you're feeling, how you're finding things, and asking questions, relevant questions. And sometimes the only way you can find those spaces to ask the right questions or to know things more is networking, mainly outside the work area. So avoiding just closing yourself in your
Yeah.
in your house, in your room after work. You go to sleep, you wake up tomorrow, and you do it again. Find those networks and start talking to people so that you get to know opportunities. Doors are opened through talking to other people. That is very, very good, and that's something that we always advocate for here at Life Campus Podcast. And I think you also started talking about everything that you talked about. It's about investing in yourself, in your personal growth. And I saw one of your posts that you posted a few days ago. You went to an event where people were kind of pitching to investors, and what you realized that the investors were more interested in the individual pitching instead of their product or services, and because they believe that if that service or product fails, person they invest in will be able to be strong enough to dust themselves up and get up and come up with something else again. So how would you advise people on investing in themselves, and what does that look like? What's investing in yourself?
I like that question because, yes, as I mentioned before, in terms of professions, I'm sure in any profession, you're not the only one. So in terms of who is able to do A, B, C, D, there's a number of us. But what makes people stick to you is what you uniquely bring to the table. So that investing in yourself is creating a value proposition beyond the day-to-day task. So that may mean it's the way you even do right. I'll use myself as an example. The current organization I'm in, I joined, I think I'm just over 2 years now.
Okay.
And then one of the managers I was working under had to go for an extended leave for a period of time. And I had people who had been there for quite a number of years. So I'm working with people with 26 years, 10 years. I had the least tenure there.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, it doesn't make sense. Like I told you, sometimes the math is not mathing. Yes. You
No,
can
adding
actually
up.
look at the facts and you're like, these people have been there longer.
Yeah.
But what was just different is what I'd been able to demonstrate beyond the work. Because technically, I really wasn't the strongest. That's the honest truth.
Yeah.
I was able to demonstrate an ability to go and speak to people, to speak on behalf of the team. I was able to articulate myself even in articles. So I wrote an article, the Wellbeing Network, and the work said, we're looking for people to write articles. So I wrote an article about emotional well-being. You see, it has nothing to do with accountancy, but I was able to articulate myself in that written form. So, and when I looked at the job description, I was able to note and demonstrate other areas where I had been able to demonstrate what they were looking for outside of the main technical thing, because I knew the technical bit. I knew there were people who had been doing this longer than I had been doing it.
Yeah.
So what that means is you also need to find, like I said, that value proposition outside just your work. So it's the way you communicate, you speak. So read books. I don't know why people stop reading books once they finish doing study. Read
TikTok.
books. TikTok and Instagram. Whether it's a physical book or one thing it helps in your language. You become a lot more articulate so you can stand out in the way you speak. When you also invest in learning things like I'm taking a public speaking course at the moment to be able to communicate because the content is there. I know about risk, I know about controls, but I need to be able to channel that to someone else. So that can mean enrolling for courses and finding material that helps you sharpen those things around you. Sometimes it can also mean deepening your understanding. So, for example, I may know risk to a certain point, but I can also dig deeper in terms of much more granular and more sophisticated type of risk. And another thing is be curious. I mentioned to you I'm on the board. of the University of Northampton. Naturally, you think I also should be on the board of the organization I work for. No, I'm not even at the top. How that came about is I was curious about how people ended up in those positions. So when I actually did study, and this is the internet, Google, pure Google, just in my home office. And then you realize that you have these organizations, you all think of the big ones, the Shell, Coca-Cola, all these other big corporations. Yes, they look for board members and they have got all these major job descriptions which need a whole track record. And then you discover there are organizations where they actually say anyone who wants to start their journey to sitting on the board. So what is there to stop you besides yourself? Honestly, you try. So another thing I would advocate for anyone, not just accountants, is try and find even voluntary roles where you can plug yourself in to think a certain way. I've seen how my thinking has changed from an operational level to a very strategic level by sitting on the board. But I didn't just start being there. I actually was a trustee for a charity. Okay. So that was a voluntary role. You go and sit and look at the affairs of the charity. Because we're all different levels, you can come in at an entry level. You get to learn how people talk, the issues they discuss. Then you start developing yourself, getting into that language. So if people can also find ways to volunteer, particularly in the trustee role. So they typically can ask for different skills. Someone who's proficient in healthcare, in education. Even for primary schools, they do need governance. So if go look for those things. Because it always used to amaze me. And I'll just be like, some of these people can tell you they've been doing this for 3 years. And I'm like, but you've always had this main job. But it's because something you can do on the side that helps, it sharpens your mind. It just makes you think a little differently from how you think. And the networking, I love the networking. I'm sure you see, I do get out and about often because I get into spaces where people prompt certain things in my head to be like, oh, so this is available. Oh, so you can do this. You'll be surprised how many free things are around you. You'll be surprised at meeting different people doing different things that can link you to someone else, connect you. People contribute. I know the first podcast I ever sat on, I saw this lady called Esther. Yeah. Yes. We were at a women's networking event. She spoke, and I really liked what she said. So I looked for her on LinkedIn. I sent her a message and I said, I really like what you spoke about. And I also gave my insights, which then prompted her to then look at my work and then say, let us start a conversation. And I found myself on a podcast. Because people ask me, they're like, how did you end up with this? It is not rocket science. But it also starts from a point of you making sure you present value. People are drawn towards value. Even if it's a product, for those that want to develop something, people are drawn towards problem solving. It can be great. It can look nice. But does it solve any problem? No. Does it have any value? No. Then people are not interested. But when you show that you are more than just your working paper. So some people actually get promotion because they get clients to feel easy. And then they can negotiate. So you do wonder, you're like, this person, they can hardly string a proper email. But they have presented themselves with a value proposition beyond just what is on the job description. Because we are running businesses. Whatever organization, it's a business. Whether it's a service, it's a product. We all want to get to the end point of getting the customer to willingly give us money. So if it means we're going to have some team members that joke around with clients and, make sure clients are feeling more at ease, they renew the contract, that person is kept on. So before you judge, what is your value proposition to the organization or to the world?
Exactly. Now, I like what you said about being curious. My WhatsApp says, as it says, don't judge, be curious. Because I think sometimes we exclude ourselves from these opportunities because we judge ourselves like, I can't do that. The moment you say, I can't do that, you've excluded yourself. Instead of saying, oh, okay, maybe I can't do that yet, but what can I do to put myself in a position where I can do it now? So there are resources. Some of us are in fortunate positions where there are resources to help us to develop continuously. And I understand that some places where the resources are not there, which is why I'm trying to reach out to as wide audience as I can with kind of these conversations where you get information, you get advice, you get guidance in terms of how you can grow. What I always do as well is try to find some free resources that I can put in the description box below, which I will do as well. Things like communication skills courses that you can do, which are totally free to help with your communication, negotiating skills, and different things that you might be interested in. And for those who are interested in accounting, I'll also put a free course that you can try, because sometimes you think you are interested in something, but then you go and spend so much money into it, then you realize you don't want it. But what I'll do, I'll provide a course. It's totally free. You try it out, then you get a better sense of like, is this really what I want? So you end up with making an informed decision as to this is what I want or this is not what I want, and then you move on. You make a decision and you move on from there. So thank you very much for that. And let's talk about your mindset. Obviously, moving from one country to another and making a success of it. And like I said, from what attracted me to your profile is the energy, the motivation that you give other people around you. How do you get such a mindset in situations like workplace, outside your workplace, and all the motivation that you give people on LinkedIn? Where is the energy coming from?
A lot of it is from failure, I can tell you. That
Yeah.
is one thing. I did mention for a number of years, I actually was in a very depressive state, to be honest, because I had an idea of what I was going to be, the type of child accountant I was going to be. My life, I had a script, I would like to call it. And then I moved to the UK. So when I was at Ernst Young in Zimbabwe, I was not a small character in terms of I was present, I did well. And then I moved to the UK and it was almost as if, guys, can't you see my brilliance? It's like I felt like I was shelved. So that transition for me took a knock on my confidence in so many ways. I actually started to call myself an introvert, to be honest, because that's why I like people questioning why they manifest certain behaviors. Please be curious about yourself, why you find yourself doing certain things. Sometimes it's your environment that is pushing you to a corner. You're not an introvert. You may just naturally be quiet, that's fine. But when you question yourself, you can sometimes get answers. But I internalized it. I thought I'd lost that brilliance. I'd lost that spark. So I sort of even withdrew within myself. And I almost became embarrassed to say, what happened of me? Like people who know me and they're like, what happened? And it took a tank on so many ways. I also say, sometimes we tell ourselves, I'm just a simple girl. Sometimes it is your soul retreating with self, that self-care is not even a priority.
Yeah.
Yes. People, yes, we like to talk about all this business stuff, but it does actually, your personality sometimes can become outward.
Yeah.
So even for me, everything took a tag and I was like, I'm just a simple girl. I don't look for anything. And I was really going and thinking further and further in that state. And I remember once having a call with my dad. And then I was like, I just ruined myself. Like I was going somewhere and then the sat nav just switched off. And it's not rerouting. And then my dad was just like, okay, so what's your thing? I was like, I should have never left Zimbabwe. Everything here is not working out. Because somehow it's a very domino effect. Once you see things in a very negative thing, like, trust me, things do just also go. Your heel will get stuck in some road crack. Everything or you just feel like everything is just not going right. So he actually said to me, so are you going to get on a plane and come back? And I said, no, not exactly. I can't do that. And he's like, okay, so what are you going to make it work? And yeah, I'm thinking we're supposed to be venting and just, throwing things into the atmosphere, how life isn't fair. But I think he kind of gave me a virtual slap in the sense of, okay, you are there. So are we just going to wait until we die? Or are you going to come back? Then if you think this is the face, then now come back. But it's those moments where I really was like, okay, what can I do? Because I've always had a dream that I'll be going to board meetings, looking very nice. And I was like, okay, I can't necessarily just find myself on a board of a big company. What can I do now? Where can I inject myself as a board member to feel like a board member? No.
Mm.
And then now started finding all these school trustee roles. So I even was a school trustee for a little bit. So you start to find the school trustee roles and you're like, oh, when you now analyze it, you're like, yeah, I'm thinking at that strategic level. And once you inject yourself into those things, somehow all the others start to look for you. So what you need to do is that small step into that initial thing. And because I was starting to find fulfillment, the creativity within me was also starting to come out because I was enjoying doing this.
Yeah.
I had a lot more within me to share. So I start writing. The writing, people are like, oh, this is interesting. Again, the domino effect, people want to hear about it. It starts moving. So even though I didn't achieve to be the finance director of the organization I had the biggest role, I actually found being content with the role I was in and appreciated it for the sense of I like where I am and the season I am. I've got young children, so I do the school run. It's a part of my life. So I can appreciate that whilst that role looks attractive, it cannot actually encompass this side of it. I would still need to be able to do this. So right now, I'm not quite ready for a role that requires me to travel around the world. So you then appreciate because you're also looking at this aspect of your life. But that's why I'm like, it came through failure and also testing the water. Some things I did try and I'm like, no. Like, for example, I know right now I'm not in a space where I can necessarily be an entrepreneur with a product to buy and sell or the like. I did try that. Then again, check with yourself and you're like, yeah, this is straining. This is not working. Some things are just not now. I like the analogy I once spoke about, the glass balls and the plastic balls.
Yeah.
There's going to be balls juggled at each point. Some balls let them go.
Yeah.
It's you might pick them up or you might end up just squashing them because you're like, no, we're not returning to this one. Or some of them it's like, not now. Then later you pick it up. Some balls can turn from plastic to glass. There's a time when you're thinking it's on the side, but now it becomes your main thing. And some things you thought they were the main, you switch. But you need to have that elasticity, not to feel stuck in one place.
Yeah.
Allow yourself to change your story. I often laugh when I meet people and they go like, I wish I was just born with your spirit. To be honest with you, Ezra, I had years where I wore a smile like an outfit. Like I put it on to say I'm going around people, and then I'm like, I can be myself and I put it off.
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
it came through a season of failure. And when we have these conversations, it's to also bring the humanity to things. Because when people see us, it's the Superman. But we really are Clark Kent who can sit in their living rooms and go like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Yes. So may no one ever feel like you've reached a point of no return. You
Yeah.
can slowly build it up. And I really don't know how the universe works, but the small step builds momentum. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
not your own. People are attracted to people who are moving. So some things end up coming to you, but you need to have that moment where you say, let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
But yes, what's the worst that can happen? Have that
Yeah.
attitude. Because I
Yeah.
have moments where I'm just like, I've walked into networking rooms and I've been like, I am the only person of this kind. Yes. And sometimes it feels awkward, first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Then someone says, hi, next person, next person. So be ready to feel uncomfortable because you feel like an imposter sometimes. I
Yeah.
remember, I think the first article I put on LinkedIn after a while, because I used to be just a repost queen. You know, when people just put stuff and you just repost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And then when I put my own thoughts and you're constantly checking because you're thinking, is someone going to push back? Is this going to get received? Or is this what? The truth is, once you get started, it gives you a stepping, like it's like a spring for the next one.
Yeah.
You will feel
Yeah.
that discomfort. Please take it as part of the process. I also do not want to dismiss the idea that sometimes the discomfort can get too much for you. Do pull away occasionally if needed. But that's when that intuition, sit with yourself. I also went to therapy. That's one thing I think in our community people don't talk about.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I'm not seeing my therapist much less because when you mention therapy, you're like, oh, what's wrong with you? Nothing,
Yeah. What's going on?
nothing. Why do I advocate for that? There are times when you've got so much in your head, you also cloud your own judgment. For example, think of someone running through a wall. You run through a wall, there's dust everywhere. And here you are trying to pick up the blocks and rebuild the wall, but the particles are getting in your eyes. You can't even see which edges match with what. And you're just running. Stop. Sometimes you are not able to see on your own. So going to therapy for me involved sitting and going like, I'm struggling, having trouble sleeping. I'm getting up every day at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
I've got this and this and this. I'm thinking about this. And then she says, stop. And she's like, what do you mean about this? And then you start to process because sometimes you are not able to do that self-processing. It might not be therapy where you get to pay someone, but a mentor also acts as that. I want people to stop this thing of just running, just going. You need the moments of reflection. So for me, therapy was that moment where I would go and speak to someone. I would have clarity to then map out and say, okay, at this point, this is it. This is where I need to go, such and such. Even with your mentor, they help you just to organize your thoughts. Don't overburden your friends. Don't overburden people at work with all your issues. Yes.
Yeah.
Susan, who has finished raising her children, does not want to hear everything about your child's temper tantrums and potty training. So sometimes, yes, you need to take yourself in those spaces and map out. And then it helps you clarify to say, okay, at this point, what's more important? How can I move this? What behaviors am I exhibiting that are causing? Because there's some people who think the UK is horrible, but it's because you just can't show up on time. It's
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you also
Yeah.
just have you work until it's the last minute, so you have no time to revise your work, so that you get so many review comments. Your manager doesn't hate you, but if you do that and you see that, okay, what can I change, or you've changed what you can, sometimes you then realize, no, this place is not for me. Then you move. So it helps. Yes. So if anyone will take anything from me, is have moments of reflection in your journey.
Mm. Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying tonight. If you don't move, things will not move. The moment you start moving, things will move. And this relates to anyone who's maybe traveled to a different country and you're working in a different country now. You have to start moving towards your goal. And sometimes we get reluctant because our dream was to go to that foreign land and work. And so we get so happy that I'm working, I'm paying the bills, and you stagnate, you're not moving anymore now because you feel like you've reached that goal. And it only comes to when you meet someone who will change your perspective. And for me, when I moved here when I was about I think about 19 or so. My first job was here in the UK, and I was so excited to to have a job, to have my own money. And I was working at the hospital, and I was serving tea and coffee to patients. And there was this one old lady I used to talk to, really nice lady. She would tell me about her history, her life, and I enjoyed talking to her. One, it was just a moment where I would stop from doing whatever I was doing, talk to someone, and I learned a lot of things. The second thing is I learned a lot of things from her. And then I walked in one day, and she looked at me, and she said, "What are you doing here?" And I thought, well, you know what I do
I work
here.
here.
I make coffee. I'm here to make your coffee. I said, I'm here to give you your coffee. Don't you want your coffee today? She said, no, no, no. I know what you're doing now, but why are you here? Why are you not doing something with your life? You're a young man. You seem to be very bright. Why are you stuck in this? You told me you've been doing this for about a year now. Why are you still doing this? So we went into a conversation. I explained, and she said, next time I see you, I want you to tell me that you've applied to go to college. And you know what? I went home, I looked online, and I applied to go to college. And and that's where my journey started, because I had someone who thought, listen, this is no, you can't just accept this. You need to move. And I started moving. The moment I started moving, college, university, and everything else just started happening. Like you were saying, the moment you start moving, that momentum start, it just seems like everything else come together. So I think this is a message for, I think this has actually gone in a very different direction to what I thought it would be,
We
because
could
I
do
thought
a
our
part two
conversation
at some
was
point.
going to be focused on accounting and how to get into accounting, which we got as well anyway. But I think the most important message here is for people who are in different countries, who've moved from their original countries to go into other countries. And just as a reminder to say that, yes, you are there now. That was your dream to get there. You are there, but there's more. You are now in a position where you have opportunities to do more, to grow, to that opportunity that you probably would not have had in your own country. So let's take full advantage of it. Listen, you do a lot of work with young, encouraging people to do well, to develop and stuff like that. Is there any advice you would give, let's say, someone who wants to go into accounting now? How do they start preparing? Let's say a 16-year-old thinking about, okay, this is where I want to end up. I want to go into accounting. How do they start?
So I think, like you said, be around people who do what you aspire to do. How that helps is you get a visual representation of that which you're aiming for. So sometimes seeing how they operate, how they manage, how they speak, it can help you sort of see that this is a picture of what I want things to be like. And like we also said, that getting curious, people can accept that a job will do a reference check on you and see whether you'd be a good fit. We need to do reference job checks on jobs and workplaces as well. So you're also speaking to people who've been there. How was it?
Yeah.
Who've done that? It also helps you sort of suss out. And I like the idea, like you said, giving people free resources, because you also get to get the practical look at things. Like I mentioned, the idea of entrepreneurial and side hustle seems so attractive to me. But when I practically was getting into it, I realized there's a lot more than just the idea of putting Boss Babe on my profile of some sort. There is actual field work in the background and stuff you need to do. And that's when I was like, no, I think this is not something I can incorporate at the moment. So get those free moments of injecting yourself before you sign up, for example, like a 3-year course. And then you find out you're not too keen on it. But when you speak to people, you get to learn the different variations. Sometimes you don't need to do the whole offering of the whole chartered accountancy. You can actually start from a very sort of specialized point of view. So when you identify that you like taxes, you can actually just start off as a tax accountant person. Just start from the entry level. You don't necessarily have to go into audit. You don't have to do everything. I did the broader one. I like that because I can really take it in whatever direction that I wish to. But you only get to know that from getting curious and finding out what's there. So yes, I'd say, dip your toe, find out. The soft skills are very important. Don't be so much focused on the technical, because there are some people that are just mouthpieces in the workplace. They don't actually do the work. Others do the work, get the conclusion, they communicate it. So that might be your portion in life. So learn your written skills, your spoken skills, so that you're able to communicate that.
Okay, so that was advice for someone who wants to go into accounting. What about just life advice, just in general? In closing, what advice can you give someone just in general in terms of how they look at life, how they deal with challenges, and how they overcome difficult situations in life?
Be fluid. Be fluid. Fluid means sometimes you're flowing into a square shape, sometimes you're flowing into a star shape. It's in the sense of do not allow yourself to be fixed on a certain picture, a certain image. We can have principles that guide us. So you can have principles towards religion, matters, which is gender and the likes. But the fluidity means you allow yourself to move through seasons. The same way we can say now we can take off our jackets, now we wear them It's
Yeah.
because we're good at responding to what is around us. You need to be able to be adaptable. The world changes. AI comes in, such and such comes in. Don't get yourself to be obsolete because you're stuck on something. Allow yourself to adapt and respond to whatever is happening in that season.
Oh, wise words. Wise words. Thank you very much, Tendai. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think I will take some of that advice as well, to be honest. Being fluid, just being flexible, that's very important. So yeah, thank you very much for your time. And I really wish we had more time to just sit here and just continue talking, because I feel like there's a lot of things that we could have
When you had a
touched
lot
on.
more guests coming in, you can ask for repeat guests to come back.
Yeah, but what we'll do, I think, if time allows, I think I would like to sit down with you again to explore other things. I feel like there's a lot that we can talk about and help people out there in terms of how they navigate life in general. It doesn't have to be specifically about accounting or anything. Just navigating life in general is important to have that, yeah, information as advice and guidance. So yeah, thank you very much for your time. And, hopefully I'll see you. Hopefully I'll see you soon.
I will
Thanks.
surely be all over your LinkedIn feed.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I've actually been stalking your LinkedIn because I really, really enjoy your posts. So yeah,
thank you.
keep that up. Keep that up. You
Thank you.
motivate me every time. The other day I was like, yeah, this is what I needed this morning. And it just set my day off in a different direction,
Sure.
which was a very positive one. So yeah, thank you very much for
Yes.
that.
And would you allow me to give you your flowers, in the sense of oftentimes when we have situations and life happens to us, we can
Yeah.
take a woo is me approach, or we can use that to help others. And you have taken that approach to say you are being the person you wanted to have in your life when you were going through your career. So thank you
Okay,
so
thank
much for what you do. And I hope myself coming here will also attract a lot more people to come and share and speak their stories. And I hope there's a ripple effect and an impact that we create, that there are more out there who also take whatever platform, whatever sort of information they have to make situations better. So thank you so much, Ezra and Life Campus.
Thank you, Tendai. Thank you. Yes, you take